settled? Good evening, members and those watching from live stream from home. Right, if anybody would like to take their jackets off, they can do so. Make yourself more relaxed. Thank you. I would like to inform you that agenda item 10, approval of absence, has been withdrawn from this agenda. Agenda section 1, introduction. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. The monitoring officer, Gemma Dennis, will give the apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies tonight from Councillor Stuart Call, Councillor Tony Deakin, Councillor Paul Hartshorn, Councillor Adrian Clifford and Councillor Matt Tamayo. Do I have any other apologies?
Thank you. Agenda item 2, disclosure of interest from members. Are there any disclosure of interest? Agenda item 3, minutes, pages 5 to 14, to approve and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of May 2026. Could I have a proposer and seconder?
Proposed, Chair.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. This has been moved and seconded. I now take the vote. All those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. Agenda section 2, standard council business. Agenda item 4, chairman's announcement. That's me. Right, on the 14th of June, I had an invite to a concert held at De Montfort Hall where the Bardi Wind Orchestra played. It was very enjoyable. 22nd of June, attended at Blaby District Council to raise the flag for Armed Forces Remembrance Day. There was a good turnout from the veterans and staff considering it was a hot day. 27th of June, Ian, my consort, and I attended the Armed Forces Day Service 2026, which was held at Jubilee Square in Leicester. It was another hot morning. Agenda item 5, Vice Chairman would announce what he's been doing.
Thank you, Chair. Along with other representatives from local councils, I was privileged to attend the civic service at Leicester Cathedral, at which the newly installed Lord Mayor of Leicester was in attendance. I also attended the AGM of Young Leicestershire. Although feeling a little out of place as a 73-year-old, it proved to be a fascinating and rewarding occasion, which showcased the various ways in which this long-established Leicestershire Youth charity continued to support youth initiatives in a variety of ways. On Sunday, I also attended a concert featuring the Musical Village Choir, which is an annual event held in the attractive setting of Wistow Church. Thank you.
Now, agenda item 5, leader's statement.
Thank you, Chair. To kick off the leader statement tonight, we've got the new Renters' Right Act. So for those that are aware, there's some been changes through legislation that involves new fines, new laws and regulations, such as the abolishment of Section 25, I think it is. 21, which is the no-fault evictions. This does put some additional pressures on us as a council, and yesterday Cabinet met to agree additional resources, which will be funded through New Burdens funding to support the team with the new enforcement actions. There's also some concerns around the impacts that will have on the private rental sector, and obviously the impacts there on homelessness as well. So we're keeping an eye on that, but putting in the provisions we need to accommodate the new legislation changes. There's a section there about the new community grant scheme. We had last year 40 eligible applications were received with more than £66,000 awarded. where we estimate around 28,000 people have been benefited from these grants. So please do keep the word out about the community grants and the benefit they can do across the district. We've got the voluntary community sector meetings which continue. We're really keen in supporting our volunteers, so pleased to see that carrying on. Our armed forces support, we had arranged an RAF Cosford visit last Friday, but for those that weren't living under a rock, because it was so hot, we did think it was too hot to carry on, but we will rearrange that. But we are definitely keen to keep supporting the armed forces and are hopeful, with all the work we've done across the chamber, that next month we find out if we've secured the Gold Covenant, which I know a lot of work's gone into, but we're waiting to hear from that. I think they've announced the silvers and we're not in it. So we've either got gold or gone backwards. I'm hoping we've not, and I'm sure we've gone for gold, but the officers have done amazing work on that. Action on homelessness. So I know we had a scrutiny session recently. This was to pick up some of the funding, especially the £500,000 we put through the budget. We've already committed around £112,000. A chunk of that has gone towards 2 prevention homelessness posts, which are already seeing benefits. I think Scrutiny have seen some case studies which have equated to some substantial estimated savings, almost paying for the posts after just a month or so in the position. So we're hoping to see further savings. It wasn't about the savings, but it's good to see that help lower the costs as well. This was about trying to prevent them coming into homelessness accommodation and reducing the demand on our temporary accommodation. They'll also be key in looking at how we can spend further that £500,000 as well. And obviously I welcome Scrutiny's input, as I've said previously. That is money we want to try and deliver to reduce the demand. Another portion of that that's been committed is to go towards a new homelessness strategy, which I know Councillor Finlay is working on with officers, which is due to come to Council, I believe, in September. Planning appeals, I thought it was worth mentioning. We've recently had the Sycamore Street application coming from the independent inspector. Clearly we wanted this to be refused, but they have allowed it on temporary planning application. I think certainly my personal view is I can accept the temporary planning permission, but I think 3 years is quite a long period where I would have preferred to see it shorter, but the inspector is where they go for appeals, and that's the decision they've made, and that's what we've got to accept. We are still awaiting the Blaby Golf Course site, which is another site this council has refused, that we're waiting to see the outcome of that as well. Clean Air Day, so several members of Cabinet myself took part in a coffee morning with officers. This was to kind of raise awareness internally about a lot of the work we're doing as a council to promote like EV use, EV bikes, more sustainable food choices and active travel. As an asthmatic myself, I'm very keen we get clean air, and there was also a couple of things, new technology they're using. They've got these new little micro air quality boxes which have a SIM card in, that can strap to trees, quite cheap, and we can have these around the district very quickly. If we find that there's certain levels of bad air quality, this directly feeds into a live database that officers can monitor. At that point, we can make a decision on something more permanent, and they can put on one of our AQMA monitoring stations. So a new bit of technology to try and help with the air quality across the district. The Chief Executive and I did a kind of an awareness exercise using the staff's e-bikes. We had a bit of a tour around the district just to demonstrate you could do it. We started it off heading to the depot, then managed to pass the Deputy Leader's house and pop in for a quick surprise meeting. She was in the middle of one. Then went to Everard's Meadows, NW Leisure Centre, and then back to the offices. So it was just to try and encourage staff to use the e-bikes. They're there and ready to use, I think in total 4. And there's a little picture of us riding off into the sunset, I think, on there. That we did take some more, I think, been on iPlan, but they didn't make it to the leader's statement. Council Award Improvement Scheme. So I know we've been speaking about this a lot. It launches tomorrow. You each get £3,000 to spend in your respective ward. Councillor Shirley and I got early access to test out the form and the process, and we did it on a live application, and we were really pleased that the Sapkirk Community Library benefited from a brand new bench that we funded using our community grant scheme, and this was to celebrate their 10-year anniversary. And I think there's quite a few libraries at the minute are going through 10-year anniversary since the county stopped supporting them and they went to a volunteer-only thing. But we'll relaunch the criteria, the money and everything else tomorrow. You can use it across wards as well, so neighbouring wards, and you can also pool it. So Mike and I are just treating it as 6,000 rather than our each pot. But that's a good way. It came out a lot in budget, and certainly early on in the year with LGR. How do we do a little bit of legacy in our own wards? We do the big corporate stuff, the armed forces, the homelessness. This is a way you can actually benefit something real local. You know your areas, so please use the money. Use it or lose it, so to say, because we've only got it for the 1 year unless we look at putting it in the budget for the next year. Just some positive feedback, so some questions I know we had last meeting around the jobs fair as well. So we put some kind of positive feedback we've had from that, and of course the business grant scheme that we continue to try and do our best to support micro, large businesses as well. There's a bit of a section about Below the Whistle campaign in relation to the World Cup. This ties into some of the White Ribbon campaign that the council has always heavily supported, specifically around the ending violence against women and girls, and we've highlighted that additional Blow the Whistle campaign as part of that as well. And the tax inspections, which we continue to do, I think it was last meeting we referenced the joint work we're doing, but obviously we continue to do things through our own team, and a recent session have highlighted some vehicles that required some work doing, such as a collision issue and some leaks and stuff. But that's great to see. Meeting the Youth Council. Really appreciate the cross-party support on this session. For those that did attend, I thought it went really well. We had the Youth Council, which I think, I'm biased, I know, but they are the best in the county, if not the country. We've got a high amount of youth councillors there. Their topics for the year are habits that harm, antisocial behaviour, and crime and tackling sexism. We were put into teams, and Adrian unfortunately tied me with Councillor Cousin, which I've still not forgiven him for yet. But it was a really good session to feedback from our youth council members about what matters to them. And we were there to listen and use that to feed into the work we do here. There'll be much more work we're going to do with the youth council in the future. Keep inviting them to the youth council to make sure that they can feed into the decisions we make. Food waste success. We are still, as I'm proud to say, one of the few councils that have delivered this on time and within budget. We've shown 491 tonnes at the end of May that have been collected, so well done to members of the public. That's the equivalent of 98 African elephants, 9 fully loaded Boeing 737 passengers, or 41 Great British double-decker buses. That's what they do. Just a bit about the new chair. My only plea is please support Janet throughout the year. These are civic events and they're there to fundraise for Rainbows. If you can come to one of Janet's events, please do. It's non-political, it's purely for the civic and fundraising for the charity, so please support where you can. Just a bit about sector recognition with the light bulb and the work we've done with Hinckley and Bosworth and been shortlisted for the LGC awards. So that's always good to see. Light bulb is a very good service, and the housing and respiratory illness pilot that was run by Hinckley has been well received as well. And then just a couple of additional points on the leader's statement. Councillor Shelley and I attended last Thursday the RTPI East Midlands Planning Awards, and we had 2 members of our planning team up for Young Planner of the Year, and that was Clementine and Becky. We were up against 4 others. I think there were 6 in total that were nominated. This is from the entire East Midlands, and I'm really pleased to say Clem won. So congratulations again to Clem. Becky was also an excellent nominee, and I'm sure she'll be successful in the future. Clem will now go on to the national awards, which I think are at the end of the year, but I know the planning team are very pleased. Mike and I are very pleased to be there, and certainly win when Blaby District do win. And Hinckley and Bosworth are on the other table, so unlucky Hinckley. LGR, we continue to have sessions with the ministers. I'll be honest, the last session, the Chief Executive and the Minister was a little bit preoccupied because there's some stuff going on down nationally, and I think they were more inclined to find out what's happening with future jobs and so on. But once we know the details, the decision, whether it's modification, we'll obviously report back. We have put some provisional dates in, which I think have gone to all councillors from all member briefing. The Chief and I are also doing one with staff here and at the depot as well, so we can share what the decision government make on that. The last bit from me is the spatial development strategy. So one of the appointments I've got is sitting on the planning member advisory group as vice chair at the minute. We are going for the spatial development strategy, which takes over some of the responsibilities for allocations of housing, strategic development across
the county. We're waiting for the government to decide on the geography, but we are expecting next month to also hear on that. We do think it'll be the LLR, so Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, which will align with what we expect to be the eventual devolution geography as well. So that's it from me. Thank you all. Happy to take any comments. Chair, over to you.
Councillor Mike Shirley.
Thank you, Chair. Expanding on the Leader's statement on the Clean Air Day, I'm pleased to update the Council on the continued progress we are making in improving air quality across the district, work that sits at the heart of protecting the health and well-being of our residents. We've recently submitted our latest annual status report to DEFRA, and I'm very encouraged to report that it confirms a clear and sustained improvement in air quality across Blaby. In 2025, all monitoring locations recorded levels within national objectives, with no exceedances identified anywhere in the district. This is a significant milestone for us and reflects several years of consistent, targeted work. We continue to maintain a comprehensive monitoring network across our communities, ensuring that we have robust data to guide our decisions and respond quickly should any issues arise. A key part of our success is the strong integration of air quality considerations into the planning processes. Up to the end of May this year, Environmental Health Services have reviewed and commented on 248 planning consultations, ensuring that new developments within the district properly assess and mitigate their environmental impact. This proactive approach helps prevent future air quality problems before they occur. We have also worked hard to engage our workforce in this agenda. As part of the Clean Air Day, as the leader has mentioned, we hosted a successful coffee morning for staff, focusing specifically on practical actions that individuals can take, from everyday travel choices to reducing emissions at home. It was a positive and well-supported event that helped reinforce that improving air quality is something everyone can contribute to. Overall, the picture is very positive. Air pollution levels are decreasing, compliance is being maintained, and the systems we have in place, from planning to permitting, are working effectively. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sue Finlay.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from the Leader's statement on homelessness, I would like to say homelessness presentations have continued to increase in the early part of this year, often with more complex household needs and adding to the sustained pressure on temporary accommodation. The proposed Homelessness Action Plan will set out how the Council responds to national expectations from the Government's homeless strategy, while the Council's new housing strategy, which is coming soon, will include homelessness as one of its 4 key priorities. The Housing Services team is focused on prevention and early intervention to reduce crisis responses and improve outcomes for residents, as well as relieving homelessness in cases where it has not been prevented. Daily work includes triage, early housing advice, tenancy sustainment support and legal assessments, personalised housing plans, landlord and family negotiations, income maximisation, benefits advice, practical prevention support, move-on planning and partnership work with registered providers and support services. In addition to the above, on the 18th of May, Blaby hosted a meeting of portfolio holders and housing leads from across Leicestershire to discuss the significant and ongoing pressures on housing and homelessness services. The session provided a valuable forum to share best practice, explore potential solutions and identify opportunities to influence both local and national approaches. Further meetings are planned to build on this collaborative work moving forwards. The key message is that homelessness is a growing operational and financial pressure, but early prevention services can provide the most effective way to reduce demand and avoid crisis placements. The Homelessness Action Plan and Housing Strategy will provide the framework for future delivery, with continued political support, important improving accommodation options, enabling us to better support vulnerable households. Thank you.
Councillor Bob Waterton.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the question of community grant scheme, the leader's absolutely right. I mean, it's at frontline stuff, and you can see how Blaby District Council makes a difference. The issue that's cropped up at the last couple of meetings, though, is that the number of applications is declining. I'm hoping that we'll have some publicity in the Broughton Town newsletter about it, but I would encourage members to draw attention to what might be done in terms of applications in their own wards to help that along, or any other way in which publicity can be given to it. Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to come back?
Yeah, I think Councillor Chapman, I'm sure, has noted that, 'cause I know he chairs the meeting, and I'll take that feedback back. I know as a council we need to keep promoting it, which we do, but if there is a reduction for a reason, I'm sure the portfolio holder probably know more than I do.
Councillor Nick Brown.
Yes, thank you, Lee, for the report. Just wanted to pick up on a couple of items on basically housing issues, but and as you mentioned, Scrutiny had a briefing on the Renters' Rights Act, which was, I think, informative and useful, so thank you for the officers for doing that. The presentation we got, I believe, is available for other councillors to be able to watch. So if people want to learn a bit more, it's available. I'm sure the officers will basically flag that link up. I know we discussed that at Scrutiny. On our own tackling homelessness and the additional support, which is another thing we covered at the same meeting, it's obviously early days yet for the additional resources we put in. Clearly, the prevention approach which the council has taken, I think it is definitely to be welcomed. The numbers which were given to us, a couple of examples in terms of the savings of preventing people from becoming homeless, was impressive and really should be something that should be welcomed and supported. But clearly, in order to tackle this issue, it is more than is actually needed. And in particular, more homes are what is needed, whether they are for rent or in the public sector, or just available, more affordable homes for people to get onto the housing ladder on, or people to move if their families expand, or for any other reasons. It is invariably this shortage of available accommodation, which has existed now for probably a couple of decades, which is making this issue so much worse. The affordability issue is the one which needs to be tackled, and the failure across the country to build enough homes, and it's not a criticism of this council. We try our best, but is one of the things which has contributed to that. It is so important that those housing numbers that we need to get those up to tackle this issue. And really, much as what we're doing here, no matter how good, is almost a sticking plaster approach to it. It's increasing that supply of affordable accommodation, which is the only way in which these problems will be tackled in the long run.
Thanks, Councillor Brown. Thanks for the comments on the homelessness work so far. You're absolutely right. I mean, we're in a bit of a perfect storm. There's not been enough houses being built. There's not been enough social housing, affordable housing. We've had the cost of living from COVID, which from our own historic charts, that's where we saw a deep increase. Mortgages have got more expensive, rent. So we're in a bit of a perfect storm at the minute, and this is one of the reasons it's exacerbated the homelessness issue. The shortage of homes, I think we have a shortage nationally of 6 million. I know the government are trying to build 1.5, 1.8, so you're not even going to scratch the surface even if you get that done. It's going to take some time and a holistic approach across all these different sectors. There's the National Plan to End Homelessness, which is the national-wide plan. There's our bit we're doing locally, but
we can just keep doing what we can do to try and tackle it here in Blaby District. I think from what the team are doing, the officers and the support we get through this chamber as well means we can make a difference even at local level, but there is a big national issue with regards to delivery of homes and solving it long term as well. So I agree.
Councillor Nick Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 points really. I just want to echo the leader's comments regarding the Youth Council and thank all the other councillors who did attend. I think it was a wonderful night, and seeing the energy of the Youth Council is quite fabulous. So if you get a chance to come to one of them, please do attend, because they're so energetic on what they want to do. And just with Bob regarding the community grants and that side of it, if you remember, we did alter it to 2 years when they come back things, that's reduced it a bit. But we did have a discussion at that meeting with Luke and Zoe about really going out and advertising about the community grants. So that is in hand to be dealt with very soon. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Luke Cousin.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the report. I think 2 real important aspects of it that I think needs just to be highlighted. Obviously, the Blow the Whistle campaign is truly an important campaign, and absolutely we should all be sharing this, making people aware of it, because you know a huge portion of our homelessness is caused by such abuse in families, and if we can reduce that, then that will take off a certain level of burden from the homelessness issues. And it's not fair for people to be living in a world where abuse happens. I mean, it's 2026. How is the world gonna move on from this? And that kind of brings me a little bit and segues slightly into the Youth Council. As the leader said, the Youth Council it's an eye-opening experience. There's a quote from an actress, Constance Zimmer, which is, "Seeing the world through the eyes of a child is the purest joy that anyone can experience." When talking to these young people at the Youth Council, they are not experiencing joy the way they should. And they are not experiencing joy the way they should because of the world around them, because of what's happening out there when it comes to all of the issues they are raising. And we need to be working with young people more. Everyone in this chamber, I would hope, if they have the opportunity, will work with the Youth Council to see them, see how they talk about the harm that's happening to them through their schools, see how the issues that they're facing, the violence, the bullying, is impacting them so much that they can no longer experience that purest joy that they should be experiencing, that we should have all experienced when we were younger. So, you know, let's focus on them, focus on that as well, and make sure that may not be able to get it done for this generation of young people, but for the next generation, they've got the ability to enjoy life as a young person and come into a world that is a much nicer place than it is today.
Thank you. Would you like to come back, Councillor Ben Taylor?
Yeah, note the comments. I definitely agree with the comments around the Youth Council. It always surprises me how those young people come out with quite adult themes. I think it's quite shocking from the things they're saying. I'm surprised to hear it from those younger people. But this is exactly why we do things with the Youth Council, so we can hear, as politicians, as decision makers, to see how we can make a difference. It's much bigger than the district council. Obviously the county run the schools, have got a bigger role to play, and national government, but to take part in that and to find out what's going on, we can then play our part in making a difference. So support the comments.
Thank you. We have no presentation, petition or questions from the public or members, so please refer to Agenda Section 6, Reports for the Decision. Agenda Section 6, Reports for Decision. Agenda Item 9, Blaby District Local Plan. Proposed Submission Version, Regulation 19, Publication. Pages 19 to 36, the supplemental agendas. Will Councillor Mike Shirley please represent this report?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present the proposed submission local plan to Council this evening and to recommend that it is approved for publication under Regulation 19 of the Town and Country Planning Regulations 2012. The local plan is one of the most important documents this Council will prepare. It sets out how our area will develop over the planned period and beyond. It identifies where new homes and jobs should be located, how infrastructure will be planned, and how we will protect and enhance places and environment that matter to our communities. It is a plan grounded in sustainability, reducing the need to travel, supporting walking, cycling and public transport, whilst focusing growth in those areas where services can be delivered and securing green and blue infrastructure and drainage to help reduce flood risk. I do not intend to go through the plan in detail tonight. Members have the full proposed submission local plan at Appendix B of the Council report. Alongside the supporting papers and the key proposals are also displayed on the boards in the members' room. However, I do want to clarify that approval for Regulation 19 publication is not the final adoption of the local plan. It is the formal stage at which the Council publishes what it considers to be a sound and legally compliant plan, so that residents, businesses, landowners, infrastructure providers, statutory bodies and other interested parties can make representations before the plan is submitted for independent examination. This is an important step in progress towards re-establishing a 5-year housing land supply position. As members will be aware, without an up-to-date adopted local plan, the Council will continue to be subject to speculative planning applications. Adopting a local plan takes back control, not only of where development goes in the district, but also secures the infrastructure needed to support the delivery of new development and provides the certainty about when and how the district will grow for residents, businesses and investors. Publication at Regulation 19 allows all parties to consider the plan in full and make formal representations on whether it meets the relevant legal and soundness tests. Those representations will be considered as part of the next stage of the process and will inform the independent examination by a planning inspector. The plan has been prepared following consultation, evidence gathering and technical assessment, which we will continue to refine as we move towards submission, such as infrastructure requirements. Approving publication tonight is not the end of the process. On the contrary, it will open the formal representation period and gives everyone the opportunity to comment on the plan before it moves to submission and examination. For those reasons, I believe the recommendations before Council are proportionate, necessary and in the best interests of progressing a robust and up-to-date local plan. If approved by Council tonight, the proposed submission local plan will be published for consultation in accordance with Regulation 19. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the local plan development team for their hard work in producing this plan, not forgetting the enormous amount of work still to be done prior to submission to the independent examiner. Chair, I would like to propose that Council approves recommendations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I have a proposal. And can I have a seconder?
Second and reserve comments, Chair.
Thank you. Do members wish to speak? Councillor Nick Brown.
Thank you. I'd first of all like to just say thanks to Council for setting up the reference group which the political parties were represented on. I think it's been meeting for roughly around about 2 years to consider the development of the plan and get information and feedback into the process. I think the first thing I would say is that it's enabled myself to recognise the amount of effort that officers had put into producing this document, and having to wade through all of the evidence and the technical reports, and of course national planning guidances and other policy documents. So whilst it may be called the Blaby District Local Plan, in fact it is of course a document which has to conform very rigidly to those external factors, and in particular, as I say, national planning guidance, but perhaps even more importantly, a strong and robust evidence base. And getting that and that evidence and putting it into the plan has clearly been a work of some time, and congratulations for the officers for the work which they put in and what's come out of it. I think we've seen it. It's not easy. In saying that, it is a recognition that this is a plan which undoubtedly members here may be able to go through it and nitpick here and there about things that they would like to see in it, or things that probably they might not like to see in it. But people must remember that, as I say, we are not necessarily completely in control of this document. It is ours, it has our name on it, but it has those caveats of the national guidance and the evidence base. And so this is obviously what we feel is being the best that, under those circumstances, that we feel is the best outcome for the district going forward. I spoke earlier about homelessness and the need for us to build more housing, and I obviously recognise that new developments are often unwelcome by existing communities, and that is obviously something which is true across the country, not just here. But there is a need to build, but the important thing is to try to get that in the right place. And without a local plan, as Mike has said, we become at risk to speculative developments, and we have already seen that affecting the district. So we know we need to build. We need to try to make sure that we build in the right place. But even then, we know that at times residents will not necessarily welcome some of those changes, but we are where we are. The risks of not approving this, I think, are far greater for the council, and with all of the caveats that we may well wish to put on this plan, it is clear that the most important thing is to have a plan. Without it, we are vulnerable. I think I note what has already been said, that obviously at this stage, what the motion does is ask us to go out to consultation, and therefore there's an opportunity for residents, landowners and other interested parties to make their representations during that, and those can be taken on board when it becomes finally towards the inspector. Thank you.
Right, I'd just like to remind that we have about 5 minutes on per chat.
Apologies, just got lost there.
Okay. Right, can Councillor Luke Cousin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we need houses. We do not challenge that premise. Unfortunately, what we are faced with, as Councillor Brown has stated, is effectively not a local plan. It's a nationally legislated blueprint that says, here's how many houses you have to take. If you don't take that many houses, we'll force them upon you. They also say, because of the legislation, You can only build houses where someone says, here's some land, you're allowed to build on this piece of land. They also say you have to have a 5-year land house supply. But they also say there's no legislation in place to force developers to actually build what they've said they're going to build. So it doesn't really much feel like a local plan. It feels like something forced upon us by national government to try and make the houses that they promised, which I don't deny we need, but not necessarily ever in the right place. Another big concern I have is that it just feels like there's no good choice when it comes to a local plan. They say, here's the local plan, and if you don't vote for the local plan, you get the alternative, which is always worse. But where's the democracy in that? What are we actually voting for here? We're voting for the one thing. We either have the thing or we don't have the thing. That's not an option, not truly an option. It's a threat. And that's fundamentally what we're faced with today. A threat on house building in our area. Build something that we say or get the alternative, which will be worse. At the end of the day, when it comes to me and how I vote on this, I recognise I'm a local representative for the people of Stoney Stanton and Croft, Foss, Stony Cove, Potters Marsden, everyone in that area who looks at the house building situation and is worried. They are concerned about so much. A huge part of it is transportation and travel, which I don't think, and I've vocalised this many times during the meetings that we've had about this, works as a concept, the active travel, this forward-looking approach to travel, vision-led. You can find a consultant, trust me, I am a consultant in my day job. You can find a consultant that will support absolutely anything if you try hard enough. And therefore, the concern is the travel will be bad, especially out in the areas like Foss, Stony Cove, where we're more remote, we haven't got local infrastructure that supports us as much as we need, and people aren't going to get on the 60-mile-an-hour roads and cycle places as easily as they would closer to the city. I also look at the developments and I say, okay, Stoney Stanton, big land west of Stoney Stanton SDA. Is it something we want? I want to see the plans, I want to see the developments. If people in my area had a choice, would they choose it? They would probably not. However, there are benefits to it. There is a new secondary school, there is local primary schools, there's buildings that can be turned into doctor's surgeries, there is infrastructure there. Fine. You can probably get people on board, but then you start looking at all the satellite developments, the little things around the outside and inside that are going to contribute to the traffic, contribute to the problems, but not cause any resolution. And those are the ones that are probably going to be brought forward first. Those are the ones that are needed to pay for the bigger developments later on down the line. And it's not fair on our residents, it's not fair on people. And yes, these developments might come anyway if we didn't vote for this local plan. However, I'm a local representative and I've been told time and time again, once a piece of land is in the local plan, it is very, very difficult for it to be removed. So on the basis of what is locally, I can't support the local plan as it currently stands to go to members of the public because I think it will scare them. I think it's overestimating how many houses we need, adding too much contingency, which probably is a legislative requirement, as I've been told. However, at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to hit right with the residents where I live, and I've been elected to represent their views. So, unfortunately, I will not be able to support the local plan as it currently stands, but I do thank every single person sitting in front of me who has contributed towards that. The hours you've gone into, I'm sorry about how I've been through some of our meetings, but it's all been for the residents, and I appreciate all the hard work you've put into producing what is, as Councillor Shirley said, a legally bound and sound
Sorry to say
local
that
plan.
you're over your 5 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. That's pretty much me done. But thank you very much for what you've produced, and I have no doubt it will be passed anyway by members of this chamber. So we look forward to seeing what residents say about it. Thank you.
Councillor Hannah Gill.
Chair, thank you. Firstly, I would like to thank the planning officers, the wider council team and everyone involved in preparing this draft local plan. I recognise the enormous amount of work, technical evidence and consultation that has gone into producing a document of this scale, and I genuinely appreciate the professionalism and the dedication that has brought us to this stage. I also want to be clear that I support the principle of having a local plan. We need to plan positively for the future, provide new homes and create new opportunities for investment across our district. However, I'm speaking today as the elected district councillor for Enderby. My responsibility is to represent the residents who elected me. And after carefully reading the evidence and listening to those residents, I am not persuaded that the inclusion of Carlton Park and Enderby Golf Course in this draft local plan has been sufficiently justified. The plan requires 11,195 homes, yet you propose 12,953, providing a buffer of approximately 1,758 above the identified requirement. Carlton Park alone accounts for 560 of those homes, and even without that allocation, the plan would still exceed this housing requirement by around 1,200. And for me, that's the key question. This is not about whether we need more homes, it's about whether these particular sites are genuinely necessary. If the plan can still comfortably meet its housing requirements without these allocations, then I believe we have a duty to ask whether allocating 2 of our most valued community green spaces is justified. As a ward councillor, we have a duty to listen to our communities. 5,095 parishioners signed a petition asking that Carlton Park and Enderby Golf Course are not included within this local plan. I fully appreciate that planning decisions can't be determined by petition numbers alone. However, when over 5,000 residents took the time to engage with this process, I believe we have a responsibility to ensure that their concerns have been properly considered. Those concerns are not simply about losing open land. They are about increasing pressure on roads that are already congested, the cumulative impact of development across Narborough, Enderby and Lubborsthorpe, pressure on healthcare and education, flood risk, biodiversity and the loss of valued community spaces. I also appreciate that the officers carefully monitor planning permissions, Section 106 agreements and the delivery of infrastructure and financial contributions. My question is slightly different. As members, we have seen an evaluation of whether the previous local plan has achieved its wider ambitions. Not simply whether homes were built, but whether congestion reduced, active travel increased, air quality improved, and whether existing communities became healthier, safer and better places to live. We know what's been delivered. I would also like to understand what difference it has made. I am also concerned that not all green spaces are being viewed in the same way. Green infrastructure is not about the quantity of open space. It's about its accessibility, its function and how people actually use it. Carlton Park and Enderby Golf Course are not simply undeveloped parcels of land waiting to be built on. They are valued community assets that contribute to residents' health, well-being and quality of life. Carlton Park is used every day for walking, exercise, dog walking and enjoying nature. Enderby Golf Course is a municipal golf course owned by this council and accessible to the public. It's a community facility, not a private members club. Whilst Everett's Meadows is often suggested as an alternative, it's approximately 2 miles from the centre of Enderby, around a 40-minute walk via Leicester Lane. During the Enderby Hub appeal, the planning inspector acknowledged witnessing HGVs mounting the kerb along Leicester Lane. That's not a safe walking route for many residents, and travelling via Blaby Road would make the journey even longer. For many people, Everard's Meadows is therefore not a realistic substitute for the accessible green spaces they currently enjoy close to home. I would also note that whilst the draft local plan groups Enderby Golf Course within Narborough for the purpose of this allocation, the golf course itself lies within Enderby Parish. And the elected member for Enderby, it's entirely appropriate that I speak on behalf of the residents who use and value this important community asset. Finally, I remain concerned that many of the improvements for existing communities appear dependent on future funding and future delivery. Residents have had similar aspirations before. I would like greater confidence that transport improvements, healthcare provision, education capacity, and the wider infrastructure on which this plan depends on will be delivered alongside growth and not years afterwards. Good planning is not simply about meeting housing numbers. It's about creating sustainable places where both new and existing communities can thrive. As councillors, our responsibility is not only to ensure that enough homes are built, but they are built in the right places, with the right infrastructure, while protecting the qualities that make our communities great places to live. As elected members, we are not here to simply endorse a plan. We're here to scrutinise it on behalf of the people we represent, to ask difficult but necessary questions, and to ensure that decisions we make today will stand the test of time for future generations. For those reasons, I will be voting against this draft local plan progressing to Regulation 19. This is not because I oppose a local plan, nor because I oppose new homes. It's because I do not believe the council has yet demonstrated what part and part.
5 minutes.
I will finish my sentence, and Enderby Golf Course are necessary allocations within the plan, when it already exceeds its identified housing requirement. Until that case has been clearly made, I cannot support these allocations or the additional pressures they would place on existing communities. I therefore cannot support this draft local plan in its current form. Thank you.
Councillor Margaret Wright.
I think I better put my watch on so I know when I've done my 5 minutes. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I believe as councillors this is one of the most crucial documents we are asked to consider and vote on, because it lays development plans for the whole district up to 2042. That's the next 17 years. And we all know anything to do with planning and development is always contentious, because it requires balancing financial interests with emotions, subjective opinions, and the rules of the planning system. We know when there is a contentious planning application at a parish council meeting because the meeting room is full, and quite rightly so, because decisions made impact lives. There is always a mismatch between what residents emotionally care about and what the law allows councils to consider. Authorities can only consider material planning considerations, and that's where the battle lines start. The government is clear that every local planning authority should have an up-to-date local plan. It's a statutory requirement. Blaby does not have one and is currently paying the consequences by being vulnerable to speculative developments. We do not have a 5-year land supply, which means it's a free-for-all and a banquet for developers. We have effectively lost control of where housing goes in our district, and we are losing appeals at significant cost to the public purse. Developers are calling the shots and deciding where to build, even if inappropriate. We have a government whose policy is build, baby, build, 1.5 million new homes, which, as was said earlier on, we need them. We are given mandatory targets, 13,000 over the next 17 years. That's 658 new homes a year in this district. The homes must be built somewhere in our district, and severe consequences if we do not deliver. So we are facing Hobson's choice. I will admit these local plan proposals are not perfect, but they are better than nothing we have. I spent the majority of 2025 attending planning committee meetings, speaking on behalf of my residents to try and stop speculative developments. In the past, when we had a 5-year land supply, they would have been dismissed as inappropriate. They were allowed due to the tilted balance. My residents now face at least 3 years of absolute chaos whilst these 3 large sites are built out at the same time. The local plan cannot stop speculative development, but it will give us back control to refuse unsuitable sites and give us a fighting chance at appeal. Delivery can then be planned. Tonight, as councillors, we face difficult decisions to make, but I urge you to be pragmatic and do the best for the district as a whole. If we all defend our own patches because we do not like particular developments, we get nowhere, but jeopardise sustainability and stability in the whole district for the next 17 years. Personally, do I want to lose the lovely fields opposite me that I've known since childhood in my small village? Because they're in this plan? Honestly, no. I would rather know, but I would rather know that the development is controlled and the planned number of houses are built rather than the possibility of it being tripled over the time. and I will have an opportunity to comment on the application at the application stage when it is submitted. For the reasons I have highlighted, I will be supporting the recommendations of this report to progress to consultation and publication. And I would urge all residents to visit the presentation workshops that will take place over the next 6 weeks, to register your views for the planning inspector and submit evidence for the final examination for scrutiny. Thank you, Madam Chair. 4 minutes 27.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Right, now John Bloxman.
Thanks. Firstly, we need to be honest with ourselves. The housing numbers being imposed on Blaby are far too high. I'm surprised that people here think we have an undersupply of houses. What we actually have is an oversupply of people, created and supported by every other party in the chamber. Whether the numbers are 11 or 13,000 with the buffer over the plan period, it's extraordinary. Frankly, it's ridiculous. But it's also outside our control, as has been said, and we just have to deal with the consequences. That said, we do have some freedom, and I'd like to see us taking a firmer stand on protecting the green wedges between villages. Places like Enderby, that's already been mentioned, the golf course provides a great outlet for young people, and we need more things like that, not less. Also, a personal one is Blaby, the Keeper's Farm development between Blaby and Countisthorpe is another green wedge. Once gone, it's gone. These wedges are not abstract planning concepts. They're buffers that preserve the character and the communities, the identity of the villages. They separate. The plan also leans heavily on sustainable travel to reduce car use. Someone who doesn't drive, I do value footpaths and cycle routes and good bus services, and I want to see more of them, but we've got to be realistic, both about whether that necessary infrastructure is going to be funded, but also whether enough people will actually choose to use it. Aspirations are not the same as outcomes. That said, there are real positives in the plan. I think the strategic sites approach is the least bad option if we're forced to build all this housing. Entirely new villages with schools, doctors, shops, pubs, right from the start, is a much better model than the piecemeal pressure that we've seen in recent years in places like Enderby and Blaby. I'd much rather see one properly planned new community than constant expansion in the villages throughout the district. And second, I'm keen on the strengthened environmental safeguards for new developments. Requiring new developments to retain water and reduce downstream flooding is exactly the kind of forward-thinking policy that we need. The best solution is fewer houses, but if we have to build them, then doing more to fight flooding is essential. So overall, I will support this vote tonight because mainly because the delay will be disastrous. As Maggie has said, there'll be more speculative development if we don't have a plan, and also because this plan does have a lot to welcome. But there's still work to do, and we should keep pushing to ensure the final plan is robust, realistic, and genuinely protective of our communities.
Alex De Winter.
Afternoon all. I just wanted to welcome that within the document, especially Appendix B, and this might be slightly dry, so do bear with me, the recognition of self and custom build housing. We do have an unmet need, and I do believe that viewed from the lens of cost of living, we're talking about different types of housing that becomes more affordable. I do appreciate that the type of member in the community that would want to do a self-build has more resources than somebody that needs legitimate, affordable housing. However, any way that we can provide our residents to live in a property at a better value and cost to them and have a better time living in Blaby, I really welcome. So I would like to thank the officers, especially calling out the requirement in Whetstone Pastures as significantly identified, but the broader policy laid out within Appendix B that seeks to ensure that strategic sites do offer self and custom house building. And I think that's a really big step forward for what will be a small minority of our residents, but it's a very welcome step because it is another way of delivering housing to meet people's needs. So thank you to the planning team and recognising that need within our district, even though it's a very small minority. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Ben Taylor. Before I pass over to Councillor Ben Taylor, does anybody else wish to speak? Dennis Waterton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to, at this moment, thank the officers for the work that they've done. And I, along with others, I've attended what seems like an endless number of meetings at which they've been bombarded with questions and have responded to those or gone away and done something about it. So I'll be supporting this plan because we really don't have any alternative. My concerns, as some people here might expect, are around sustainability. I can't claim to have read every word of the enormous document that there is here on sustainability, but I note, however, that there are quite a lot of significant negative effects. And there's some positive effects in there as well, but the way it's written is it comes to a judgment on every issue, and it talks about what kinds of effects there are. And unfortunately, perhaps some of the major significant negative effects are around infrastructure, and that unfortunately is largely beyond the control of Blaby District Council. And you know, officers have had to produce a plan in the context of what the neighbouring authority, Leicestershire County Council and others, have to say about the infrastructure. And that's a very difficult job. And as we've seen in the meetings, it isn't possible to be precise about it. Clearly people will work on that, but we have to bear in mind that it's not just down to this council what happens. It is also down to other authorities, in this case particularly Leicestershire County Council. So I will be supporting this plan. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Anthony Mosley.
Thank you, Chair. As ward member for Blaby Village, you have to consider not just what the impact on Blaby, but the surrounding villages. When I look at Cansthorpe, Whetstone, Enderby, and the development that's going to happen in there, and vice versa, the impact on and the lack of infrastructure and the traffic. You know, to go north, if you want to go north of Leicestershire, there's only two major routes, and already they're gridlocked. You know, it's took me nearly 40 minutes to do 5 miles tonight to come to this meeting, which is only going to get worse with the more development that comes on with these small sites. The notion of these two strategic sites are what's needed to allow for the larger infrastructure, but obviously they're weighted towards the end of the plan. So we're not going to see the benefit of them for 17, 20, maybe 25 years. I agree with what John mentioned about the idea around trying to use public transport more, but you know, without the investment to make it happen, those in the more rural areas are just not going to be able to benefit from it. So I'd also like to put on record the thanks to the group of officers to my right, having sat in the meetings and them listen to us bombard them with the same type of questions, the same challenges week after week. I respect that you've been able to keep level-headed with us and carry on through this and actually deliver what you've done. So thanks on record for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Roy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to say that I think there's been a lot of constructive comment around the room, which I welcome, and certainly the plan itself is a marvellous work of art. We have to be pragmatic. It's the best we're going to get, I think, and it's essential we do support it. My biggest concern is that communities are lost when you merge all the conurbations, and there's a lot of history in a lot of the villages, and I like to see those separation zones maintained in as far as possible. I'll obviously be supporting this, and good luck to us in the future.
Right, back to you, Councillor Ben Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Just to kick off, I do want to put on record my thanks to Councillor Shirley. I know when I took over leader some 13 months ago and I appointed him as the planning portfolio holder, he probably had one of the biggest portfolios to deal with, but I do want to put on record my thanks because at no point has he had a go. He might have in jest moaned a few times, but he's very much taken up the mantle, had all those all-member briefings, chaired the member development group meetings. So on a personal thanks to Councillor Shirley for all the work he's done over those 13 months or so. I also want to echo the thanks to officers here tonight. I know back when I was planning portfolio holder for 5 years or so before Mike took on the role, I know we worked very closely together and fed in, and the member development group that Councillor Brown raised, I would like to take credit, but it wasn't my idea, it was Vicky Chapman, and I think she deserves the credit for making sure that all members feed in as best as they can, not through that member development group, the all-member briefings and so on. So specifically thanks to our officer Vicky Chapman, because those were her ideas, not mine, not the officer, not the portfolio holder. As been mentioned, we are in a bit of a rock and a hard place. We don't decide the development levels we have, we just have to try and place shape. And I think the place shaping is what's key. There's been a lot of comments, certainly mainly from Councillor Gill and Cousin, around things in their patch. We are not here just for our patch. We are here as Blaby District councillors. That means what happens in Glenfield to Kilby, from Braunstone Town to Sharnford and everything in between. All 105,000 residents of this great district. That's what this decision is based on. If you can sit there and honestly think that something in my backyard should be better than someone else's, you're not thinking as a Blaby District Councillor. This is where those that have been here for a while now understand that difficult decisions are not necessarily easy ones, but they are the right ones. And that's what comes with understanding your role here as a district councillor. You know, I sympathise with the Carlton Park comments, but that development is going to happen. You've got a round of applause for saying you can object to it. If we all object to it, Carlton Park is going to happen. The difference you're missing is place shaping. That's how we look at it holistically across the whole district. I did take a look earlier, and I noticed since you and Councillor Cousin have become councillors, you've never once sat on planning committee, as far as I'm aware. Now, I don't know if that's for work reasons or not, but the reason I raised that point, I get that, but the reason I raised that point is you elected to do the civic duty, and I think you've got two councillors down the end there in the Liberal group that sit on it all the time. They understand how hard it is to make decisions at the planning committee. They understand when they go to make a decision, you're looking at an application on its own. This is where the local plan comes into a brilliant position where we can look at it across the whole district. Try and solve some of those place shaping issues that you can't do through the planning committee. And so for those reasons, we are in a rock and a hard place, but what is the alternative? If we all vote against this plan, that's what we get. I don't know if you can see that, but there's two maps. That is pretty much the whole district covered, and that's less of it. That's what we're voting on. So if you can really sit here and say no to a local plan, you're welcoming unwelcome speculative development, continued lack of control, and the inability to think about this as a district councillor. So I would implore everyone to make the right difficult decision and support the Blaby District local plan. And thanks again to all the members and officers for their work.
Right, Councillor Mike Shirley.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened carefully to all sides, but there has to be a sense of realism. I've actually got some notes here which I'll very quickly go through. Not approving the local plan for publication, which is what we're talking about tonight, will almost certainly mean that Blaby District Council cannot submit by the December deadline. It will mean the alternative to approving the local plan will be continuation of speculative planning applications that this council is being subjected to already and not being in control of decision making. And more importantly, if you don't vote for it tonight, the public will not have the ability to comment on the local plan. It's essential that the Blaby District Council submits the local plan for examination by the 31st of December. That's an important date because that's when the current system finishes. A lot of detail we don't know yet what will come, but it will inevitably lead to delay in adopting a local plan in the future. Just so that you're clear, this local plan now, I remember when we first got information when I was a parish councillor, was in 2019. That's how long it's taken to get to the position we're in now. If we don't approve of this and we miss the deadline, we're back to where we started, which means developers have got carte blanche to do what they wish. Thank you, Chair.
This report has now been considered and I will take the votes. All those in favour? All those against? All motion is carried. Right, if any member of the public would like to leave the room, they may do so. Agenda item 10, Leicester and Leicestershire authorities, statement of common ground relating to statistic distribution floor space needs updated and appointment. Will Councillor Mike Shirley, page 37 to 196. Will Councillor Mike Shirley please present this report?
Thank you, Chair. I never thought I'd get the opportunity to speak more than the leader in the District Council. To support the emerging local plan, a statement of common ground on the need and apportionment of strategic warehousing, that's units over 9,000 square metres, has been drafted by all the plan-making authorities in Leicestershire. This has been informed by the Leicester and Leicestershire Strategic Distribution Floor Space Needs Update and Apportionment Study, should have taken a breath, which provides an updated position on the 2021 Strategic B8 Needs Study. I must emphasise that this update was commissioned by all of the Leicester and Leicestershire local authorities. It is evidence that will feed into each of the local plans progressing to Regulation 19, proposed submission stage, including our Blaby local plan. This statement of common ground is a formal document used in the plan-making process to demonstrate collaboration between the plan-making authorities. Other districts have already gained approval for signing of the statement Common Ground at Appendix A of the report through their own political and governance processes. It can be seen in Table 0.8, apportionment by district or borough, that Blaby's share of strategic B8 will be met by 105,100 square metres of road serviced warehousing and 650,000 square metres of rail served. The road served need is formed entirely of already committed sites. These are Enderby Hub and land north of Leicester Lane, Lubbersthorpe. In respect of the rail served need of 650,000 square metres, the Statement of Common Ground concludes that once the expansion of East Midlands Gateway has been accounted for, there are no further rail served opportunities within this study area beyond Blaby District. However, it acknowledges a development consent order for a rail freight interchange wholly within Blaby District was refused by the Secretary of State for Transport on the 10th of March 2025. It references the refusal largely due to insufficient transport evidence to robustly assess impacts at the M1 Junction 21 and M69 Junction 3. This decision also identified unacceptable highway safety impacts on the village of Sapcut. This Statement of Common Ground supports the Council's position on any future rail freight interchange applications in this location by making clear that it does not imply support for this development site. It is clear any future proposal would have to be considered afresh through the nationally significant infrastructure projects or development consent order process and on its individual merits, and would not be part of the Blaby local plan. The Statement of Common Ground is required to demonstrate compliance with the tests of soundness at examination and to adoption of the local plan, and with that, regaining control of growth in the district. Not signing the Statement of Common Ground, therefore, carries a risk to the Council in plan making. It would leave Blaby at greater risk to increased speculative planning applications and undermine the delivery of strategic infrastructure. Chair, I would like to propose recommendations 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a proposer. Can I have a seconder?
Have to second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do members wish to speak? Councillor Luke Cousin.
Thank you, Chair. This one for me is very difficult. As a lot of members in this room know, where I live is obviously quite close proximity to the site for the aforementioned rail freight interchange, which was declined. I think my concern through this entire document in this this Statement of Common Ground for strategic distribution floor space all boils down to rail freights are a nationally significant infrastructure project, yet we're looking at it on the area of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. The proposal that was brought forward had many arguments against, none of which were considered particularly weighted, I believe is the term, by others, but had a significant impact on our residents. The noise levels that putting anything in that piece of land would have for the residents of Elmsthorpe. Not to mention the residents that might end up living in the proposed land west of Stoney Stanton that is going to come forward as part of the local plan that was just approved for consultation. As a result, you look at what it says in here, and whilst it doesn't support a new DCO, and it doesn't undermine our ability to argue against a new DCO, we are effectively accepting the fact that that piece of land could have, bring something forward as part of this document. And if we agree this document, we're saying that that piece of land could have something on it, as long as they deal with all the problems. And that, for me, that's not good for our residents, because our residents have real issues and real concerns that were not addressed as part of the consultation on the DCSO. They weren't mitigated, they weren't given much weight. I can't support a statement of common ground relating to this when the location is not suitable. It's not now, and it never will be, but we're saying it is, all because of this one study, this one report that was limited to Leicester, Leicestershire, Rutland for the development of infrastructure and rail freight. I'm not against rail freight. I'm not against moving things onto the trains. I do not think this is the right location. And I think this document says we are open to it being the right location, rather than actually stating what it should do, which is, no, this is not the right location. So for that reason, I'm going to be against this as well tonight. Thank you.
Would you like to come back?
He comes back at the end.
Thanks, Chair. Statement of common ground would need to be approved, because if we go to submission without the agreement on this, the examiner will throw it back at us. What it actually states, that land that Luke's talking about is down purely for rail freight. If you don't accept this statement of common ground, then that can leave it open to road-based warehousing. So again, I would urge that you approve this statement of common ground. Thank you.
Councillor Ben Taylor, you wish to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We can't get away from the fact that, from a technical point, it's a suitable location. Now, back in 2019, when I was planning portfolio holder, I brought forward a similar statement of common ground, acknowledging the data and the evidence says, from a technical point, that is where the train line goes. This land, it is a logical place from a technical point. And don't forget, we then stopped successfully the Hinckley National Rail Freight Interchange. So we can't get away from the evidence, what it's telling us, but as we've made clear in the report, this does not mean we can't stop or campaign against a Hinckley National Rail Freight type solution, because it would end up being an NSIP. And as Mike said, it's important to document as part of the local plan, and we need to submit it through. This council supported something similar back in 2019, and we continued to fight against HNRFI and were successful.
Councillor Nigel Grundy, would you like to say anything? Okay, thank you.
Mike, if there's anything else.
This report has now been considered, and I'll now take the votes. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Now, would anybody like to have a 5 minutes break? Agenda item 11, transfer of public open space, pages 197 to 204. Will Councillor Nigel Grundy please present this report?
Thank you very much, Chair. Hopefully this one's a little less controversial. This report seeks approval to transfer ownership of 2 public open spaces, Thorpe Astley Park and the Osiers, to Bronson Town Council for a nominal sum of £1 each. The recommendation follows the Parks and Open Spaces Strategy 2024 to 2034 and reflects our commitment to ensuring these spaces remain sustainable, well managed and continue to benefit local communities. Braunston Town Council has expressed a clear desire to take ownership of both sites. The transfer will enable the Town Council to access additional funding opportunities, provide consistent management and maintenance, and create opportunities for future community activities and improvements. For Blaby District Council, the transfer will reduce our ongoing maintenance liabilities and generate ongoing revenue savings, whilst ensuring both sites remain public open spaces in perpetuity. In the case of Thorpe Astley Park, the transfer will only proceed once the necessary drainage, flood alleviation and footpath improvement works have been completed. I would like to take this opportunity to place on record my sincere thanks to Pete Williams, our Parks and Open Spaces Manager, for everything he has done to overcome the many obstacles and challenges that have brought this transfer to the point we have reached tonight. Projects like this do not happen by chance. They require determination, patience and an enormous amount of hard work behind the scenes. And Pete has shown all of these qualities in abundance throughout this process. Thank you once again, Pete. I propose recommendations 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 of this report to Council and ask members to support the transfer of these assets to Braunston Town Council. Thank you, Chair, and happy to take any questions.
I have a proposer, can I have a seconder?
Chair.
Second by Councillor Neil Wright. Do members wish to speak? Councillor Nick Brown.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously going to support this. There's obviously 2 parcels of land here. With the Thorpe Astley Park, this I think was originally sort of flagged up for transfer back, it's pretty getting close to 20 years ago now. As Councillor Grundy has said, there have been a number of issues which need to be resolved, which has delayed this being handed over to the Town Council. In fact, that under a licence arrangement, the Town Council has actually been maintaining it for much of that period. So there's not a massive saving for the District Council in doing this, but it will. It is, though, definitely welcome to have that finally moved over, and I'm sure that the Town Council will welcome that. The Osiers is a slightly different case because previously this has not been so much of a popular option to move this into the control of the Town Council. However, local government reorganisation, I think, is both an opportunity but also a risk. And I think the feeling is that land like this, and perhaps other parishes in the district may want to consider this as well, is that once we have a single unitary across where the district falls with the final solution, the solution that the government actually put on us, who knows what resources that they will be able to bring to maintain the parks and the standards that this council has. And I think the feeling is that the investment that Blaby has put in, I know particularly recently into the Osiers, and the management of it has put it into a much more fit and sustainable state, and it's been in for a long time. Some of the flooding issues which we've had have been dealt with as well, and the improvements to the footbridges. This means that I think going forward it is much likely to be better protected, better maintained, and a greater asset for local people than the risk that if it is taken over by a much larger authority where resources are scarcer and the care and attention might not be there in the longer term. So I think that this report is definitely welcomed, and I would say perhaps to other parishes, you might want to consider your options as well for taking control of those those assets which the District Council currently has. Thank you.
Councillor Anthony Mosley.
Mr. Councillor Grundy, I'm sure you know what I'm going to say here. However, Nick has just set that up perfectly for me. It was not rehearsed. Obviously, we support the transfer of the assets for over to Braunston Town, and I do encourage the Cabinet member to carry on looking at other parks and assets within the district area, particularly in Blaby Village, that could be transferred over to parish councils. Thank you, Chair.
Any more members wish to speak? Right. Councillor Grundy, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Nick, I completely agree with you. You know, I would urge other parish councils and town councils to make most of this opportunity, as you have, as Narborough has, as Enderby. There's quite a few parish councils now realise that if we do go ahead with LGR, there might be a risk of those lands not being used for what they're meant to be, you know, so it's great to see that we can move these lands not just for less of a liability to the district, but so we can make sure that they do remain with the very local councils in perpetuity. And I know exactly what you're saying, Councillor, so thank you.
This report has now been considered and now take the votes. All in favour? The motion is carried. Agenda item 12. Recommendation of the Cabinet, Executive, Treasury Management, Outturn 2025/26, pages 205 to 218. Will Councillor Cheryl Cashmore please present this report?
Thank you, Chair. Before I present this report, I need to draw attention to an amendment that is required to the report on page 208. In both tables shown on the page, the headings in column 2 and 3 should state 2026, not 2025. Apologies for this error, but all figures quoted are correct. The Treasury Management Outturn Report for 2025-2026 reviews the Council's Treasury activity and confirms performance against the approved prudential and Treasury indicators. The report also fulfils the Council's statutory duty under the SIPFA Code and the Local Government Act to provide an annual review of Treasury management performance. There are 3 key messages. Firstly, the Council has operated fully in line with its approved Treasury strategy and prudential indicators, with no breaches reported during the year. Secondly, the Council has continued its prudent approach to borrowing. No new borrowing was undertaken in 2025-26, and total external debt reduced from 4.86 million to 4 million. The Council remains significantly under-borrowed using internal balances to fund capital expenditure, which has minimised borrowing costs in a higher interest rate environment. Thirdly, investment performance has remained strong despite a changing economic climate. The Council achieved an average return of 4.10% on investments, generating over 1.23 million in interest income. In terms of capital activity, actual expenditure was 4.96 million, lower than the capital programme budget, reducing the Council's overall borrowing requirement. The Council's capital financing requirement increased to 21.6 million, reflecting underlying borrowing need. However, this remains well below affordable limits, and all indicators, including the authorised borrowing limit, were complied with. From a risk perspective, Treasury activities continue to be tightly managed. Key risks such as interest rate volatility, liquidity and credit risk are mitigated through professional advice, strict investment criteria and daily cash flow monitoring. As members are aware, the property fund has been transferred to UBS Triton. Unlike short-term Treasury investments, property funds can experience fluctuations in valuation, particularly during market downturns. It is therefore important that our property fund investment is viewed as a longer-term investment, allowing time for asset values to recover and income returns to be sustained. Any property fund investment interest received during the year is transferred to the property fund earmark reserve. The reserve now holds just short of 229k. The investment value of UBS Triton stood at just under 745k at the 31st of March. With the fund balance of Loughborough standing at 2k at the end of the year, the final transfer was made on the 30th of April. In conclusion, the Council's Treasury Management performance for 2025-26 has been prudent, compliant and effective, delivering strong investment returns while carefully managing risk and borrowing. I'd like to propose recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 be approved. Thank you.
I have a proposer. Can I have a seconder?
Happy to second this and reserve comments, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Do members wish to speak? Right, Councillor Royal, Denning.
Yeah, thank you. I thought there'd be more input than that, but I'd just like to point out that the investment we had in the property company was sound at the time, and had larger councils not lost their nerve, might well have come good. I'm pleased to see we net did not lose much money on it, but if somebody bails out, especially a big boy, then inevitably the fund is going to go under, but we managed it very successfully, I feel, in the circumstances.
Would you like to come back, Councillor Cashmore?
Well, thank you for your comments, Councillor Denny.
This report has now been considered and now take the votes. All in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Agenda item 13, modern slavery statement, pages 219 to 228. Would Councillor Ben Taylor please present this report?
Thank you, Chair. This is the Modern Slavery Statement 2026. We do this on an annual basis. It's not a requirement for the Council, but we do it because we believe it is the right thing to do. I would just note part of why we do this is it feeds into some of our strategies and policies which are on pages 226 and 227, such as the Children and Young People Safeguarding Policy, Whistleblowing Policy, Employee and Member Code of Conduct, Procurement, Equality to Human Rights Policy and Data Protection. So it does actually have an effect when it comes to policy and what we do here. It is what it is, but I very much support we continue to do this, and I'm happy to propose 2.1 that we re-adopt the Modern Slavery Statement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have a proposer. Can I have a seconder?
Madam Chairman, I second this motion.
Thank you. Do members wish to speak? Councillor Luke Cousin.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, we completely support the Modern Slavery Statement. I think it's, I said this last year and I think I'll say it again this year because I think it's always a duly reminder. Can't remember who said it, but there is a saying that says you can judge a society based on the laws that it needs. The fact we need the UK Modern Slavery Act, MSA 2015, says so much more about our society than whether or not it's ever actually used. But the fact we need it, go back to what I said earlier on, this is 2026. We can do better. But of course we will support this because we have to make society better for everyone, including the young, the old, and everyone in between.
Thank you. Would you like to come back, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, just to thank Councillor Cousin for his comments. I mean, he seemed to be full of quotes tonight, but I thought that was a very good one, so thank you, Councillor Cousin.
This report has now been considered and I now take the vote. All in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Agenda item 14, motion under Council Rules of Procedure. Would Councillor Ben Taylor please present the motion?
Thank you, Chair. I propose the following motion here tonight, that this council notes the murders of Joe Cox MP on the 16th of June 2016 and Sir David Amos MP on the 15th of October 2021. That the 10th anniversary of Joe Cox's murder took place on the 16th of June 2026, and that abuse and intimidation remain an ongoing issue for elected representatives, including local councillors. Research finding that 72% of councillors have experienced abuse or intimidation in the last 12 months. This council believes that, as Jo Cox said in her maiden speech, the truth is that we have far more in common than that which divides us, that abuse and intimidation should have no place in our politics, that we should follow the example of Jo Cox, who embraced working across party divides and modelled high standards of respect and civility in public office. This council resolves to note the 10th anniversary of Jo Cox's and the 5th anniversary of David Amos' murder by coming together across political divides to mark the occasion via a joint press release from the Blaby District Council Group leaders, to continue to support the efforts to increase civility and reduce abuse in politics, including by supporting the LGA's Debate Not Hate campaign, and recommends that councillors sign the civility pledge, the Jo Cox Foundation, with a link on there as well. I think tonight kind of reflects how we can have disagreements, but we can have an honest and frank debate and do it in a respectful way. So I do want to put on record my thanks to everyone's contributions here tonight. I think it has been a good debate and it's been done in the right way. I do want to put on record my thanks to Councillor Deakin, who I know is not here, Councillor Cousin and Councillor Brown for their support in this motion and for coming together to do a joint press release on this as well. And I propose the motion as is proposed.
Could I have a seconder, please?
Yes, certainly, Chair. I remind the Council the definition of civility is the foundational social virtue of behaving with courtesy, respect and politeness. It goes beyond simple manners, requiring the ability to share your own identity, needs and beliefs without degrading or devaluing the perspective of others. That is civility. We do not agree, but we all have a common purpose, and that is to do the best for our residents. And the fact that two very sad events have happened that have led to, that means locally elected representatives lost their lives. I didn't agree necessarily with everything Jo Cox said. I did not agree with anything or much that David Amos said. But I respected them. They stood up, they held their views, they represented the people that elected them, and they were murdered for it. None of us want to be in that situation. And the rhetoric and language we use matters. It is possible to speak to each other with civility. It is possible to not agree and be kind. And it is possible for us all to exhibit that in this chamber, as we've seen tonight, as the Chair says. So, yes, Chair, I fully second this motion, and I hope everyone else will enact its common cause and make sure that nothing like this will happen again and certainly not in these chambers or to anyone in this room.
Thank you. Do members wish to speak? Councillor Maggie Wright.
Thank you. I'm happy to support the motion, but I would like to make an addition to it by suggesting that another point is added. That being that the council holds a central register of reported incidents of abuse of councillors. At the moment, there is no such central register. This will provide a permanent record and one that can be used if necessary for supporting evidence for passporting the information to the police. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Ben Taylor.
Yep, thank you, Chair. First of all, thanks to Councillor Maggie Wright for bringing this to me before the meeting. As I said, I was happy to include this. I will include it as an addition. I did speak with the other group leaders as well, as we had our little photo op, who are all supportive as well. So I'm happy to propose the motion with that additional recommendation, and I think we just need Councillor Cousin to confirm he's happy to second the updated motion as well.
I'm happy to second the amended motion.
Thank you. Councillor Tracy Shepherd.
Yeah, I welcome the council considering this pledge, given that there have been numerous incidents that have required multiple interventions by the monitoring officer because of councillors' conduct towards other councillors. How can the public have confidence that signing this pledge will represent a genuine change of behaviours rather than simply a statement of intent?
Thank you. Councillor Nick Brown.
Yeah, thank you. Can I thank Councillor Ben Taylor, leader, for bringing this motion. It's very welcome. There is, I think it's fair to say that we have all seen in the last 10 to 15 years an increase in the abuse and intimidation, particularly I think online, which occurs. People are passionate, and the opportunity, because they're not face to face with people, to say things which probably they wouldn't do in a normal environment has increased. And invariably the business models and the algorithms and the bots which inhabit some of the social media platforms have amplified this by an enormous rate. So, it's almost as if the Joe Cox's murder, which was in 2016, was in a different era, and that the volatility and the abuse now seems to be even worse for elected members, whether it's in Parliament or as local councillors. Obviously today we've had to debate a very difficult issue for members on the local plan, something which will affect our residents and something which many of those residents will feel aggrieved about whenever planning decisions are made which go against what they feel is against their interests. But I think that the debate today has been good. I think it's been helpful to try to explain to those people who have either been here or watched it the difficulties and challenges that we face. One thing that we have to do, I think, is listen. We have to be prepared to have open minds. We have to be prepared to always discuss and debate. We may not in the end disagree, but we have to learn, we will have to talk, and we have to engage. These are important things for us to do, so that whilst at the end of the day there will be disagreements, it's the approach to that and how it's done and seeking those resolutions and seeking a way forward. It is good to talk, and so that I think is something that I think we can all take from this. And as the leader says, Joe's support for that cross-party approach, sometimes that can be difficult, but it can also be a way in which we can try and reach out and explain to our residents that, you know, we have difficult decisions to make, but we can sometimes be united in facing those challenges. Thank you.
Councillor John Bloxman.
Thank you, Chair. On the face of it, this motion sounds lovely. Who could possibly object to something called the Civility Pledge? It's warm and it's fluffy. It's wrapped in the language of kindness, and it's presented as a response to 2 shocking and tragic murders. And of course, every one of us here condemns political violence, abuse and intimidation. But this motion goes beyond those things, and the pledge focuses on things like tone and mockery. Firstly, the supposed link between political incivility and murder simply doesn't hold up to scrutiny. The killings were horrific acts carried out by extremists. The murderers were already radicalised, already violent people outside the democratic sphere. There's no credible evidence that a heated debate in Parliament or a sharp exchange in this council chamber will turn someone into a terrorist or a murderer. Secondly, we already have a code of conduct, so this motion looks purely performative. Thirdly, when we look at who's behind the pledge, the picture becomes murkier. The Joe Cox Foundation does important work, but the other organisation is called Compassion in Politics, another soft, comforting name that hides a very particular agenda. A quick look at their campaigns shows that what they consider civil and what they consider uncivil might not be what we all might agree with. For example, they want to abolish Prime Minister's questions because it's too confrontational, apparently. It's an internationally famous institution at the heart of Britain's parliamentary democracy. That's the sort of thing they want to abolish. They want tighter restrictions on what can be said online and a far more repressive code of conduct for MPs. In other words, their definition of civility isn't about good manners, it's about narrowing the boundaries of acceptable speech. And once you start policing tone, you inevitably start policing content. This pledge is less about kindness and more about control. British politics has always had a bit of rough and tumble. It's part of our democratic culture. It's how we test arguments and expose weaknesses and hold power to account. And sometimes incivility is not only understandable, it's justified. There are times when such things as righteous anger and justified mockery are fine. Growing up, I, and I suspect quite a few others in here, admired debaters in Parliament like Margaret Thatcher and Dennis Skinner. Brilliant, usually very civil, or at least Margaret Thatcher was, but they often showed their anger in their tone and mockery when the situation demanded it. And our democratic life would be a lot poorer without people like that in it. This pledge is part of a wider trend that seeks to blur the line between civility and conformity, and I therefore oppose this motion. Thank you.
Would you like to come back, Councillor Taylor?
I'd actually like to follow on from what Councillor Wright has said regarding keeping a register of any potential incident, to also how do we get there in the first place, having a proper line of reporting of any issues, that things can be investigated properly so that this isn't lip service or indeed empty platitudes. So yeah, I think that would really help. Thank you.
Councillor Ben Taylor, would like to come back?
Thank you for the positive comments towards the motion. I think you've kind of missed the point a bit, Councillor Bloxham, and I think this is part of where we seem to be in, politically at the minute, but for me this isn't about trying to suppress expression or anything like that. It's about trying to be better than you can be when you're in public life. It's about showing members of the public that there is a better way to do things, and that is how we deal with each other, because then that reflects how members of the public can then also deal with us. We are in a position of privilege. We're elected to represent our residents, and I think we've got a role to show them how we can act and how we can be. And it's that kind of responsibility, which I think sits on all of us, that prevents that extremist views that lead down the line. And that's my view, and I think that's generally shared. I respect your view, but I disagree with it. Becca, thank you for the supportive comments, and I think that was pretty much all was said, but as I said, I'm happy to continue proposing the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, members. And the meeting is now closed. Oh, sorry. Hold fire. The motion has now been considered. And now I'll take the votes. All in favour? Now you can go home. All those against? Motion is carried.
Now you can say the meeting's closed.
Thank you. Now the meeting is closed.